My name is Catherine Blake. I'm 35 years old, and until 4 months ago, I genuinely believed loyalty was something you could build a life on. Not passion. Not chemistry. Not grand romantic gestures people post online to make strangers jealous. I mean the quiet kind of loyalty, the boring kind, the kind built through grocery lists, school pickups, shared bills, and memorizing how someone takes their coffee without needing to ask anymore. I thought that was enough. For almost 11 years, Ryan Mercer and I built what looked like a stable life from the outside. We'd been together long enough that people assumed we were married, even though we never officially cared about paperwork. We had a 6-year-old son named Mason, a comfortable house outside Raleigh, and routines that once made me feel safe. For a long time, our life was ordinary, in the best possible way. Friday takeout nights when neither of us felt like cooking. Soccer practice on Saturdays. Ryan pretending he hated animated movies while secretly laughing harder than Mason during every single one. The small things. The things you never realize are disappearing until they're already gone. About 6 months before everything exploded, Ryan changed. At first, it was subtle enough that I questioned myself for even noticing. He started staying later at the hotel where he worked in corporate event management. His phone practically fused to his hand. If a message came through, he'd angle the screen away automatically, like muscle memory. Sometimes he'd step into the laundry room to take calls in a lowered voice. Every explanation sounded reasonable on its own. Busy season. Difficult clients. Staffing issues. Vendor emergencies. But eventually, explanations start sounding rehearsed when you hear enough of them. The worst part wasn't even the distance. It was the irritation. If I asked whether he'd be home for dinner, he acted like I was cross-examining him in court. If I asked why he smiled at his phone and then immediately locked it, I became paranoid. His favorite word became insecure. You're being insecure, Catherine. Not everything is about you. You always assume the worst. That last one stayed with me because I realized something uncomfortable. I actually didn't assume the worst. I assumed the best, over and over again, long after the evidence stopped deserving it. I kept telling myself there had to be some boring explanation because the alternative felt too humiliating to survive. Then Mason destroyed that fantasy without even realizing it. It happened on a Tuesday evening. Mason sat at the kitchen table, using the family iPad for one of his reading games, while I answered work emails nearby. The house smelled faintly like garlic bread because dinner sat warming in the oven, while Ryan claimed he was stuck at another vendor meeting. The iPad buzzed. A message banner flashed across the top of the screen. Ryan still had his text synced to the device. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the name. Vanessa. My stomach tightened immediately because Vanessa Cole wasn't just any woman. She was Ryan's ex-girlfriend. The woman he once swore meant nothing anymore. The message preview appeared before disappearing. Same room as last time. I can get there by 8:30. My entire body went cold. Another message arrived seconds later. Use the side elevator. Catherine thinks I'm at a client dinner. For a second, the room genuinely tilted. Not dramatically. Not movie style. Just enough that I had to grip the edge of the counter to steady myself, while Mason happily sounded out words from his game beside me. I remember staring at the screen thinking there had to be another explanation, even while my chest physically hurt from the truth. I took screenshots, sent them to myself, then calmly turned the iPad over and helped Mason finish his homework while my heartbeat slammed against my ribs so hard it felt painful. Ryan texted me at 6:17. Late dinner downtown. Don't wait up. I stared at that message for a long time. Then I sent a thumbs up emoji. That was all. No accusation. No confrontation. No warning. I called my older sister Elise instead. The second she answered, she heard something in my voice. What happened? I need you to take Mason overnight. Silence. Then immediately, I'm on my way. She didn't ask questions after that. An hour later, Mason happily left for a sleepover, completely unaware his family was quietly detonating behind him. I waited 15 minutes after they left before driving downtown. I still don't fully understand why I needed to see it myself. The screenshots should have been enough. But betrayal does something strange to the brain. Part of you keeps hoping reality will somehow contradict the evidence. It didn't. At 8:41 p.m., I saw Ryan sitting at the hotel bar beside Vanessa. She was beautiful, in the polished, effortless way that made women like me feel suddenly aware of every exhaustion line under our eyes. Dark hair, elegant posture, the kind of confidence that filled space naturally. Ryan leaned toward her while she laughed softly. Not coworker laughter. Not casual conversation. Intimate laughter. His hand rested low against her back with the comfort of familiarity. And suddenly, I realized something devastating. He looked lighter around her. Lighter than he'd looked at home in months. I took 2 photographs from across the lobby. Then I left before either of them saw me, because I already knew enough to destroy my life. The drive home felt unreal. Like I was watching someone else's marriage collapse through thick glass. I didn't cry. That part surprised me most. I expected rage. Hysteria. Something explosive. Instead, I felt cold. Almost clinically calm. When I got home, I printed the screenshots and placed them neatly across the kitchen island. Then I packed 2 suitcases. Not because I planned it. Because once I started moving, I physically couldn't stop. Ryan walked through the front door a little after 11. The second he saw the papers and luggage, he froze. I watched the exact moment panic entered his body. He looked at the screenshots first, then at me, then back at the screenshots. The emotional sequence across his face happened almost too fast to track. Shock. Fear. Calculation. Denial. Catherine. I said nothing. He picked up the papers with shaking hands. This isn't what it looks like. Still nothing. We were talking. Then quickly, it got out of hand. Then, I was going to tell you. Every sentence sounded weaker than the one before it. Finally, he tried the phrase he clearly believed would minimize everything. It was just one mistake. That was the exact moment something inside me shut off emotionally. One mistake. Like forgetting dry cleaning. Not months of lies, secret hotel meetings, hidden charges, side elevators, and messages mocking me behind my back. I looked directly at him and said quietly, "Then you can make your mistake somewhere else." At first, he actually laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because he genuinely thought I was bluffing. You're kicking me out? I'm refusing to sleep beside someone who schedules side elevators while texting me about work dinners. His expression changed immediately after that. You're overreacting. No, I said calmly. I'm reacting exactly once. That silence between us felt heavier than screaming ever could have. Then came the tears. Then the excuses. Vanessa meant nothing. He felt lonely. We'd grown distant. He'd been confused. And finally, the real weapon. Mason needs both of us here. That line made me colder instead of softer. You do not get to hide behind our son. His face hardened slightly after that, because he realized emotional manipulation wasn't working the way he expected. He called me cruel, said normal people fought for relationships, demanded his charger and makeup bag like he was angrily checking out of a hotel instead of destroying his family. I handed him the bags anyway. He left at 11:47 p.m. Before midnight, I changed the garage code, changed the security app password, separated half our joint checking account into a new account so every dollar stayed documented and traceable. Not revenge. Protection. At 12:12 a.m., the text started. Please open the door. We can fix this. Don't do this to Mason. You're being irrational. Vanessa means nothing. I ignored every single one. The next morning, Ryan's mother called me. I expected judgment. Instead, Sharon Mercer said something that stunned me. Tell me you have proof before I say something stupid. I forwarded the screenshots and hotel photos. 5 minutes later, she replied, Don't leave Mason alone with this today. I'll handle Ryan. That was when I understood something important. The truth was too big this time. Too ugly for Ryan to charm his way around. And for the first time in months, the house felt quiet. Not peaceful yet, just quiet. Like it was finally exhaling after holding its breath too long. 5 days passed, and every single one made my decision feel less like an emotional reaction and more like survival. Ryan's story kept changing. First, it was one mistake. Then it was only a kiss. Then it became an emotional connection that crossed a line. Then it became Vanessa pursuing him when he was vulnerable. The facts rearranged themselves depending on which version made him look least guilty. The evidence did not move at all. That Friday, I paid a $4,000 retainer to a family attorney named Andrea Lawson. She had silver hair, calm eyes, and the kind of voice that made panic feel inefficient. After reviewing everything, she looked at me and said, Calm wins. Paper wins. Stay boring. So, I became boring. Painfully boring. I downloaded every bank statement, every joint card charge, every text, every phone record, every hotel-related transaction I could find. The joint credit card told a much clearer story than Ryan ever had. Hotel bar charges on 3 separate Thursdays. Ballet charges twice. Room service. Breakfast for 2. And a $720 Asheville resort charge from the same weekend Ryan told me he was attending a corporate planning retreat. I stared at that charge for a long time. Not because I was surprised anymore. Because there is something uniquely humiliating about realizing your own money helped fund your betrayal. Andrea told me not to get clever with finances. Don't shut off his phone. Don't empty accounts. Don't hide property. Document, separate, and stay clean. So I did exactly that. I opened a checking account in only my name. Froze one shared card. Kept the utilities active. Then I emailed Ryan a clean inventory list of every box of his belongings stacked in the garage. I wanted a record showing I was solving problems, not creating them. Ryan answered that email with 3 long paragraphs about loyalty, forgiveness, and how betrayal could happen on both sides. That line almost made me laugh. People really do discover moral complexity the second consequences arrive. Then the messengers started appearing. Caleb, Ryan's best friend, texted from an unknown number because I'd already blocked his regular one. He said relationships went through dark seasons. He said I was being extreme with a child involved. I replied once. Ryan lied to me, used shared money to fund it, and got caught because his texts synced to our son's iPad. Do not contact me again about my relationship. He didn't reply. Ryan's cousin Olivia messaged next, accusing me of humiliating him. I sent her the screenshots. Olivia disappeared too. Sharon didn't. Ryan's mother called to apologize for her son's choices and offered to keep Mason Saturday so I could organize the house. I told her she didn't owe me an apology, but I also told her I appreciated her more than she probably understood. That Saturday morning, I boxed the rest of Ryan's things. Clothes, shoes, shaving kits, work bags. The cologne Mason once said smelled like Daddy going somewhere important. I labeled every box and filmed each one as I packed it. At noon, Ryan showed up anyway. Vanessa was driving. That almost made me laugh from the shock of it. The new garage code stopped them, so Ryan came to the front door while Mason sat inside coloring at the kitchen table. I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. Ryan said he wanted to talk. I told him there was nothing to discuss in my driveway. He asked to come inside and see Mason. I told him he could see Mason later at the park, but he was not turning my front porch into a performance. Vanessa leaned out of the car window and started saying something about compassion. I looked at her and said, "I'm not hosting a committee meeting about my boyfriend's affair on my lawn." Ryan flinched harder at my calm than he would have if I'd screamed. "How are you this cold?" he asked. I looked at him for a moment. Then I said, "Calm is all you have left from me." That landed. I saw it. Not because it hurt him the way betrayal hurt me, but because he realized I was no longer available for negotiation. I carried 2 boxes to the car, told him Andrea would send temporary parenting terms, and went back inside. That Monday, my boss offered me a promotion to regional operations lead. More responsibility, more pressure, more money. I accepted in under a minute. It turns out, peace clears a lot of mental space. A little over 3 weeks later, the biggest twist arrived from Vanessa's husband. His name was Daniel Cole. He found me through Facebook and called late one afternoon while Mason was at school. "I'm not calling to compare pain," he said quietly. "I just thought you should know, it didn't start the night you caught them." Then he sent proof. A photo of Ryan and Vanessa at a brewery 4 months earlier. A screenshot of Ryan telling Vanessa he missed waking up beside her. A hotel confirmation for 2 nights in Asheville. And one message from Ryan that burned through every remaining ounce of pity I had left. "I hate lying to Catherine, but she's so easy to manage when I say it's work." That sentence did something to me. The affair was one wound. The contempt was another. And somehow, the contempt cut deeper. I forwarded everything to Andrea. 2 days later, Ryan showed up at my office with flowers and a gift bag, like he was auditioning for forgiveness. I worked in logistics management for a medical supply company, so everything happened in a building full of cameras and keycard access. The receptionist called upstairs and said, "There's a man here claiming he's your partner. He says he needs 5 minutes. I said, "Former partner. Do not send him up." I still went downstairs because I wanted one clean instruction recorded on camera. Ryan smiled when he saw me. Actually smiled. Like we were in some romantic scene where flowers erased side elevators. "I just wanted to remind you who we were," he said. I looked at the flowers, then at him. "You need to leave immediately and never come to my workplace again." His smile collapsed. Security escorted him out. I kept the incident report and threw the flowers in the dumpster behind the building. That night, he texted from a new number. "I think I might hurt myself if you keep shutting me out." I stared at the message for 3 seconds. Then I forwarded it to Andrea and Sharon. My only reply was, "If you are in danger, I'm contacting emergency services. Any communication about Mason goes through the parenting app or my attorney." The next morning, Sharon called, sounding exhausted. Ryan had admitted he only said it because he thought fear would make me talk to him. That was the moment even his mother sounded less sad and more tired. Later that week, he tried the softer route. He emailed me with the subject line, "Please don't turn one bad choice into a lifetime punishment." In it, he said Vanessa pursued him when he was emotionally vulnerable. He said he never meant to hurt me. He said good women forgave. What he never explained was the brewery photo, the hotel confirmations, the joint card charges, or the message calling me easy to manage. His apology circled the consequences and avoided the facts. Then he dragged Mason into it. During a drop-off, Mason looked up at me and asked, "Can Daddy come home if you stop being mad?" He was 6. That sentence did not come from nowhere. I documented it immediately and sent Andrea a summary. She filed for temporary custody terms, exclusive use of the house, and communication through a parenting app. The judge granted the app and a temporary schedule quickly. Ryan hated that. He posted vague things online about emotional cruelty and narcissists. A few mutual friends reached out. I sent one screenshot, the one where he called me easy to manage. Most conversations ended immediately after that. On the good side of life, I kept the promotion. I started running again. Slowly at first. 1 block. Then 2. Then enough that my lungs burned in a way that felt clean instead of painful. Through a friend, I met Ethan Wells, a pediatric nurse with kind eyes and a habit of listening without preparing his response while I was still talking. We only grabbed coffee. Nothing dramatic. Nothing reckless. But it was the first time in months I sat across from a man and didn't feel like I was being tested. Somehow, Ryan found out. He sent one last bitter message from another new number. "So you moved on before this is even over. Interesting." The nerve was almost impressive. I didn't respond. Because by then, silence no longer felt like weakness. It felt like a door locking properly. It's been a little over 3 months since the night Ryan Mercer stood in my kitchen and called his affair one mistake. The separation is basically finished now, except for one final signature. And in the end, everything concluded the same way it began. Quietly. Expensively. Completely. Because the house belonged to me before our relationship, Ryan didn't receive the massive payout he originally expected. Andrea arrived at mediation carrying every document imaginable: original closing paperwork, mortgage history, proof of my $48,000 down payment, renovation receipts, bank transfers. Paper wins. She was right about that. In the end, I paid Ryan $18,000 for his share of appreciation tied to the years we lived together. I kept the house. He kept his SUV. We split the remaining savings after legal fees, which left both of us bruised, but financially standing. No alimony. No forced sale. No damage to my retirement accounts. Legal fees came out just under $11,000 total. Painful, yes. Still cheaper than spending another decade beside someone who thought disrespect was normal. Custody settled at 50-50, with strict communication through the parenting app and a non-disparagement clause because of the comments Ryan made around Mason. The judge barely cared about the affair morally. Courts hear worse every day. What mattered was the manipulation, the misuse of shared finances, the emotional instability, and especially involving a child in adult conflict. There was one mediation session that told me everything I needed to know about who Ryan truly was. He arrived dressed like the version of himself my mother used to adore. Soft gray sweater, clean haircut, gentle expression, carefully lowered voice. Like he believed he could still charm his way backward through reality. Twice during the first hour, he cried. Not dramatically. Strategically. He talked about our history, our son, the family we almost had forever. Then he looked directly at me and said softly, "I hope someday you remember the woman you used to be." Andrea waited until he finished. Then she calmly slid one printed screenshot across the table. I hate lying to Catherine, but she's so easy to manage when I say it's work. Ryan looked down at the paper, and for the first time since this entire nightmare started, he had absolutely nothing to say. No excuses. No emotional speeches. No tears. Just silence. Honestly, that silence felt more truthful than every apology combined. Because deep down, he knew the real damage was never only the affair. It was the contempt, the arrogance, the certainty that I would tolerate anything as long as he cried afterward. Vanessa disappeared from his life almost immediately once consequences became real. Daniel filed for separation too. Last I heard, Vanessa moved to another city for work, while Ryan rented a furnished apartment near the airport and spent most of his time telling people the situation had been misunderstood. Which sounded exactly like something a man who schedules side elevators would say. Sharon remained surprisingly decent through all of it. She still helped with Mason whenever Ryan's schedule collapsed, which happened often after he lost his hotel management position. I never contacted his employer. I didn't need to. Apparently, the office incident, the affair complications, and questionable expense account activity were enough for HR to start investigating on their own. According to Sharon, they didn't like what they found. Caleb stopped contacting me entirely after Andrea formally warned him against interfering in custody matters. Olivia disappeared too. Funny how quickly people vanish when gossip turns into documented facts. As for me, life slowly became boring again. And I mean that as the highest compliment possible. I repainted the guest room sage green. Sold the ugly entry bench Ryan insisted looked sophisticated, even though everyone constantly tripped over it. Started leaving Mason's drawings on the refrigerator without hearing complaints that the kitchen looked cluttered. The silence inside the house changed too. At first it felt hollow. Then, eventually, it started feeling safe. That realization disturbed me more than I expected, because I slowly understood how much emotional energy I'd spent monitoring Ryan before he even walked through the door. Would he be irritated tonight? Distant? Cold?
Defensive?
Would asking a normal question somehow become an argument? I had normalized living inside emotional weather forecasts. Now, the house just felt like a house, not a storm shelter. The promotion at work turned out better than expected. My mind felt sharper without constant anxiety draining it. I slept better, ate better, started laughing naturally again instead of forcing it because silence felt dangerous. And Ethan surprised me. Not because he was dramatic. Because he wasn't. No games. No confusing mixed signals. No making me feel foolish for asking simple questions. We moved slowly, like two adults who understood that peace mattered more than intensity. One night over dinner, he casually asked whether I preferred sparkling or still water. And I almost cried. Not because of the question itself, because I realized how long it had been since someone treated my preferences like they mattered. I also started therapy around that time. Not because I was falling apart, because I wanted to understand how I'd spent so long convincing myself confusion was normal. During our second session, my therapist said something that lodged itself permanently inside my chest. Confusion is often the first symptom of disrespect. That sentence hit harder than discovering the affair. Because suddenly so many moments from the past rearranged themselves differently. All those conversations where I left feeling guilty for asking reasonable questions. All the times I apologized just to restore peace after Ryan dismissed me. All the nights I convinced myself I was insecure instead of acknowledging I was being lied to. I'd called myself patient,
loyal, understanding.
but a lot of what I actually was confused on purpose. A few nights ago, Mason sat at the kitchen counter eating cereal for dinner, because sometimes that's just how Tuesdays go. Cartoons played softly in the background while rain tapped against the windows. He looked around the kitchen for a second and said, "It's quieter here now." I stopped moving for a moment after he said it, because he was right. Our home used to feel like it was constantly bracing for impact, even before I knew why. Children always feel tension long before adults admit it exists. Now the house simply felt peaceful. The biggest thing I learned through all of this is that Ryan mistook calmness for weakness. He thought because I loved him, because I loved our family, because I wanted stability, that I would eventually tolerate any amount of disrespect as long as he cried afterward and called it a mistake. That was his real mistake. Not Vanessa. Not the hotel rooms. Not even the lies. It was believing I had no line. I did. He found it. Affairs rarely begin with sex. They begin with permission. Permission to dismiss someone. Permission to rewrite reality. Permission to slowly train another person to distrust their own instincts. The only thing that ended mine was revoking that permission completely. So that's where things stand now. Relationship over. House peaceful. Mason, okay. Finances bruised, but intact. Future cleaner than the past ever was. And honestly, that's enough for me.